Joining us now is the Alabama Senate candidate, Judge Roy Moore. Judge, welcome back to the program. Thanks for being with us.
Nice to be with you.
Yeah, Judge, let's talk about, you're now reading it. I know you put out a number of statements, but I think we should address it head on. What do you make of these allegations?
Well, Sean, first let me say this. These allegations are completely false and misleading. But more than that, it hurts me personally because, I'm a father. I have one daughter. I have 5 granddaughters, and I have a special concern for protection of young ladies. This is really hard to get on radio and explain this, and these allegations are just completely false.
What do you make specifically? Let's start with what they talked about, that you had struck up a conversation with this young woman who was 14, Lee Kaufman, and her mother says that you offered to watch the girl while the mother went inside for a custody hearing, which they confirmed it actually happened at that time. Do you know Miss Kaufman? Do you know the mother?
I don't know Miss Kaufman from anybody. I've never talked to her, never had any contact with her. Allegations of sexual misconduct with her are completely false. I believe they're politically motivated. I believe they're brought only to stop a very successful campaign, and that's what they're doing. I've never known this woman or anything with regard to the other girls. You understand this is 40 years ago, and after my return from the military, I dated a lot of young ladies. I do recognize, however, the names of 2 of these young ladies, Debbie Wesson and Gloria Thacker, which they have a maiden, that's their maiden name.
Well, let me just give the details. Debbie Wesson Gibson says she was 17 when you spoke to her high school civics class and asked her out on several dates, and it did not progress, her words, beyond kissing, according to the Washington Post. Let's stay on her. Did that happen?
I do not remember speaking to a civics class. I don't remember that. I do not remember I seem to remember knowing her parents. That they were friends. I can't recall specific dates because that's been 40 years, but I remember her as a good girl. But neither of them have ever stated any inappropriate behavior. She didn't say anything that they...
Well, she said, but do you remember ever going on a date with her? She said that you asked her out on the first of several dates, but nothing progressed beyond kissing.
I don't remember specific dates. No, I do not. And I don't remember if it was that time or later. But I do not remember that. No.
But you know her, but you never dated her ever. Is that what you're saying?
Know her, but I don't remember going out on dates. I knew her as a friend. If we did go on dates, then we did, but I do not remember that.
What about Gloria Thacker Deason? Says she was an 18-year-old cheerleader when you began taking her on dates that included bottles of Mateus Rosé wine. She's 18 at the time. The Alabama drinking age at the time is 19. Did that ever happen?
No, because in this county, it's a dry county. We never would have had liquor. If I would never, and I believe this, she said that she believed she was underage. And she, as I recall, she was 19 or older. And that just never happened. I've never provided alcohol, beer, or intoxicating liquors to a minor. That would be against the law, against anything I would have ever done. And I seem to remember her as a good girl. I seem to remember that I had some sort of knowledge of her parents or her mother, very in particular.
At that time in your life, let me ask you this. You do remember these girls. Would it be unusual for you as a 32-year-old guy to have dated a woman as young as 17? That would be a, 15-year difference, or a girl 18. Do you remember dating girls that young at that time?
Not generally, no. If I did, I'm not going to dispute anything, but I don't remember anything like that.
But you don't specifically remember having any girlfriend that was in her late teens even at that time?
No, I don't remember that, and I don't remember ever dating any girl without the permission of her mother. And I think in her statement, she said that her mother actually encouraged her to go out with me.
Well, actually, there was one, a 14-year-old that was working as a Santa helper when you approached her, and when she was 16 and her mother forbade her. That was the third case. Let me go back to Kaufman for a minute here, because this is the issue here. She gives specific instances where the first that you met her at the courthouse, you got her phone number, you talked to her on the phone, and on that you drove her 30 minutes from her house to the woods and where you lived, and you kissed her. And on a second visit, you took off her shirt, pants, removed your clothes, touched her bra, underpants, and you guided her hand to touch him over your underwear. Now, those are specific charges she's making. And I think, obviously it's about a month away from this election campaign.
Yeah.
Are you staying? Is it your position? None of that ever happened.
It never happened, and I don't even like hearing it because it never happened. And they're doing this a month away, 4 weeks away, after 40 years in public service. I've run 5 successful campaigns, statewide campaigns, 3 in the county. This has never been brought up. It has never been even mentioned. And all of a sudden, 4 weeks out, they're bringing it up. They're bringing it up because it's political. It's a direct attack on this campaign, and it involves a 14-year-old girl, which I would have never had any contact with, nothing with her mother or in a courthouse or anywhere else would I have done that. In fact, her allegations contradict the whole behavior pattern that the 2 of the young ladies even witnessed herself.
You mentioned you'd never go out with any young girl. I assume you meant like when you were 32 at that time of your life. Would you always ask the permission of the parent before you would take a girl out?
Well, I mean, I'm saying that in their statements that they made, these 2 young girls said their mothers actually encouraged them to be friends with me. And, that's what they said. I don't remember. I wasn't privy to their conversation, but obviously we never had any sexual activity. There was never anything like that, and the behavior was altogether appropriate, according to them.
I got to take a break. We'll come back more with Judge Roy Moore exclusively here on the Sean Hannity Show. All right, as we continue, Judge Roy Moore responding to the Washington Post, and the headline, woman says Roy Moore initiated sexual encounter when she was 14 and he was 32. I guess the most important part of this is you have pretty much been convicted in the court of public opinion. I mean, I'm looking at, there are Republican senators, like John McCain is out there and he's very vocal, and he's been out there saying that from his position that he said the allegations against Roy Moore are deeply disturbing and disqualifying. He should immediately step aside and allow the people of Alabama to elect a candidate they can be proud of. And Mitt Romney said, you're innocent until proven guilty is only for criminal convictions, not elections, he goes on to say, and seemingly suggesting just because of the allegation you should step aside. How do you respond to them?
Well, if you step aside for any allegation, then you might as well not run, because when you run, you're going to get allegations. And first, I would tell these individuals they wouldn't make good judges, they wouldn't make good people in the judicial system, because you are innocent until proven guilty. In this case, this woman has waited over 40 years to bring a complaint. 4 weeks out of an election, it's obvious to the casual observer that something's up. We're also doing an investigation, and we have some evidence of some collusion here, but we're not ready to put that to the public just yet.
So you are trying to prove your innocence, in other words.
Well, just like you said, they're doing it to defeat the Senate campaign. They're bringing something. They're trying to mix something up from other girls that never said anything about sexual impropriety, and they're all labeling it on this 14-year-old, and I had nothing to do with this. This is a completely manufactured story meant to defrock this campaign, and they're losing. They're 11 points behind. They don't like my acknowledgement that there is a God, and that we've refused to debate them because they're very liberal stance on transgenderism in the military and in bathrooms. They're desperate. Sean, they're simply
Well, let me ask you a general question.
Yes.
Let's take you out of this for a second. If any Senate candidate who was 32 at the time had done this to a 14-year-old girl, to me, it's disgusting. To me, it would be despicable. To me, that is a predator. Would you agree with me? No such person who ever does that should ever be in the United States Senate?
Of course. Nobody that abuses a 14-year-old, age 32 or age 17, it doesn't matter. if you abuse a 14-year-old, you shouldn't be a Senate candidate. I agree with that. But I did not do that.
Let's go back to it. One more question, because I didn't understand this. If you're 32 and you do date, again, there's a difference, 17 or 18-year-old, that's a pretty big gap for a pretty young girl. Is that something you did when you were dating? I'm not talking about the 14-year-old in that specific allegation. Would it be normal behavior back in those days for you to date a girl that's 17 or 18?
No, not normal.
If my daughter is 17, my daughter's 16 years old. If she's 17 or 18, I don't want her dating a 32-year-old.
I wouldn't either.
And you can say unequivocally you never dated anybody that was in their late teens like that when you were 32?
It would have been out of my customary behavior. That's right.
In other words, you don't recall ever dating any girl that young when you were that old?
I've said no.
And you think that's inappropriate too? That's what you're saying?
Inappropriate, yes.
Let me ask you about your general feelings, because, a lot of things come up during elections. This is not my first rodeo, Judge, and I've covered a lot of big topics over the years, and I know a lot of people rush to judgment, and in my life, I try not to do that. And this is such a serious allegation. It's such a significant point in this race. My only goal is not ideological here. My goal is to get to truth. And Richard Jewell, I was in Atlanta, and then the article comes out, well, he fits the profile of the lone bomber because he lives with his mother. We saw what happened in the Duke lacrosse case. Those 3 kids were falsely accused. We saw that the whole nation and the president was wrong on issues like Ferguson, Missouri. Hands up, don't shoot never happened. George Zimmerman was found not guilty by a jury of his peers. Darren Wilson was exonerated by a grand jury because of eyewitnesses that saw the Michael Brown incident. Then you have the case of Freddie Gray. Everybody thought those policemen did horrible things, and they were all not guilty. There was no evidence on any of those cases. So there are instances when things are said wrong. Clarence Thomas, I would argue, is a case. Herman Cain is a case. I got to take a break. We'll come back more with Judge Roy Moore exclusively here on the Sean Hannity Show.
The new Sean Hannity Show, talking about what's right for America, with a renewed commitment to keep you up to date on the breaking news stories.
All right, as we continue, Judge Roy Moore responding to the Washington Post, and the headline, woman says Roy Moore initiated sexual encounter when she was 14 and he was 32. So I guess, you've got yourself in a position here where you're a month out of an election. This all drops on you. You're denying everything. What do you want to tell people, and I'll just give you the microphone, about how they should view the Washington Post, these people making these charges, and your denial? How should people see it?
Well, I think they should see it as it really is, and that's 40 years I've been in the public eye. I've been serving as a deputy prosecutor. I've been a judge. I've been a chief justice twice. I've run a foundation for moral law. And now, after 40 years, 4 weeks out of an election, not even mentioned in the primary, they bring charges and try to back them up with other things that sound bad, but then they allege things that are completely untrue. I never knew this woman. I never met this woman. And these charges are politically motivated, and they're there to do exactly what they're doing. The Democrat is 11 points behind. He's very liberal. They don't want to talk about his record. They don't want to talk about his inexperience. They want to diffuse this just like they diffused President Trump's agenda by bringing up the Russian deal. They're bringing up something to detract from this campaign. And they know what they're doing, and they've got me, obviously, on the radio hearing things about a sexual encounter that never happened. I would put you in the same position. You would feel just like me. You'd be angry. You'd be very angry. And that's exactly the position I'm in. This never happened. They know it never happened. And obviously, you don't wait 40 years to bring out something like this. There are going to come out facts. There will be facts to show in this situation that this was the Democrat and maybe even the established Republican effort to undermine this campaign because they don't want to hear the truth in Washington and they don't want to hear the truth about God and about the Constitution.
Last thought on the establishment Republicans. You think they're partly involved in this?
Well, if they're not involved in the implementation of it, they're sure backing away very quickly.
And then what about those that don't give you the presumption of innocence? What do you say to them?
That's what I'm talking about. They're not even giving me the presumption of innocence. They're saying I should resign because the Washington Post, who brought these charges against the president, or allegations about the Russian involvement, the Washington Post has attacked my foundation, they've attacked my wife, and now they're attacking me personally on a sexual matter. I don't know what's coming next, but I'm sure that in the next 4 weeks, they're going to come out with another article because they've got an agenda and they're fulfilling their agenda right as we speak.
Judge Moore, thank you for taking the time, and we appreciate you giving your side. We believe in being fair and balanced, and thank you so much for talking to our audience, answering these questions. We appreciate it. Wish you the best. Thank you.
Well, thank you.